Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Live on this 18th of October 2020. Hope everybody is doing well. There's a good few people here, which is nice. Very glad about that. Yeah, welcome everybody. It's been a busy week. I hope everybody's okay. Hope everybody has had a good week. Especially as we appear to be gradually all heading back into lockdown, albeit possibly for a short period, which is fine. Short period probably might help. I don't know, I'm not a virologist, but I do know people that are, and I trust their judgment. They seem to know, they do all the groundwork, they've done all the studies, so I trust their judgment. But yeah. So it looks like we're all heading back into lockdown, at least for a wee bit. And hopefully that'll help get this second wave under control. And hopefully people will actually kind of, follow the guidelines instead of, protesting and doing their own thing. I guess we'll have to see how it goes. And hopefully we'll emerge on the other side of it with a lot less damage compared to the first wave. So there it is. That is coronavirus, and that's all I'm going to say on the subject, because this is not a political show. This is music production, Studio One, that kind of stuff. So, Alan says, Santa's not coming this year. Yeah, I hope he is. I'm pretty sure he is big and strong. And as our chat died, as the whole show died, suddenly we've gone from 8 or so, 12 or so, down to 0. At least that's what I'm seeing here. That's weird. I've never seen it do that before. Anyway, we will ignore the data because the data is playing up. I think we've got about a dozen people here, which is a little lower than we would normally have. So hopefully we'll pick up as we go through the evening, as we go through this hour at least. So we did an extra long show last week for my birthday, which was really, really nice. And you guys were very kind and very generous to me, and I appreciate that very much. It was a good birthday week, and I think that was a notification. Let me just go and check what that was. Okay, still live. Thank you. Yeah, it was weird. It was just like suddenly the metrics on the live streaming side of YouTube just suddenly died. Everything went to 0. It was weird. Never seen that happen before. So thank you for that, Mike. I appreciate that. And Dwayne confirms. So that's cool. All right, so we've got that little glitch out of the way. So yes, I had a fantastic birthday week. I got some new clothes, which is nice. A nice new jumper. And a few other bits and pieces. And I got some cash as well. Cash is always good. And so we pretty much blew that on the day with just eating out, which is nice. Not that we actually went anywhere to eat out. We got the eat out company to come to us, which was nice, really nice. So we had a great time. It was just a nice family celebration, really. I mean, it's not like I hit 50 or something like that. Not like a round number, an important number. It was only 45, so we didn't go overboard. So let's see, who do we have here? If I go back over to the chat, we will see that Alan over in Glasgow, also known as Photography, Light and Magic, was first in the door at, wow, 5:26 Central Time, otherwise known as 11:26 UK. And he was the first one in the door. He says, "Hi guys, how's it going? Hope you're all well." And then he says to me, "Glad to see you. How are you? How's the family?" Yeah, we're all doing good. The kids are now on half-term break, so they'll be away from school for a week, although that may well be extended depending upon what Nicola Sturgeon decides this week, whether she decides to kind of follow suit with the rest of the UK, particularly England, She might. She might not. She certainly hasn't ruled schools closing out or in. She's not really saying very much on that subject. So, yeah, I've got the kids here for a week. My daughter is away to a soccer camp this week, so she'll be doing that every day, which is great because she has real high hopes and ambitions to eventually play for Scotland one day. She is absolutely football crazy, which is great. So we'll be doing that this week, and I'll be working as per normal. So, yeah, that's kind of the story here. Let's see, who else do we have? We have Tony Stringer here, Sean Aaron is here, and John Lake is here. He says, hello, gave a short guitar lesson today. Now I remember why I don't do that. Yeah, I totally empathize. I was an instrumental instructor for 20 years, and yeah, it can be a grind. And who else do we have here? Thomas Melkerson over in the Philippines is here as well, which is awesome. Just Bob, one of my faithful moderators, is here. And Mike, who I've already mentioned, drummer Mike, who is another one of my faithful moderators, and Ken Moss. So all my moderators are in the house. Let's see. Just Bob says my chat locked up at the same time. I had to refresh. Yeah, it would appear that YouTube Live went down for a moment, maybe for like a second or something. And then it took a few seconds for the metrics to catch up, I think, is what happened. So, I'm hoping that is all it was. And hopefully the rest of the show we will be fine now. We have 15 here, apparently, according to the metrics. So, Michael Johnson is here as well. He's just arrived. Hey, Michael, how are you doing, mate? It's been good to talk to you a little bit offline, off the air, which has been cool. All right, so what are we going to be talking about tonight? We are going to be talking about tonight, because I have been thinking about this a fair bit, and I've been talking to my good friend and colleague, Lawrence Farr. He is one of my colleagues in support, in Persona's technical support, and he is awesome. He has been around Studio One since the Studio One version 1 beta. That's how long he has been around. So he and I were talking, and just kind of like looking back over the kind of the developmental history of Studio One, and kind of and he had this great analogy of imagining Studio One to be a child that we have given birth to, and there you go. The metrics have gone down to 0 again. That is so weird. So guys, if the chat goes a little bit dead, please refresh it. And hopefully we'll stay on. I don't know what the heck is going on. But anyway, yeah, so we were kind of talking about this, and he had this great analogy where he kind of laid out kind of the developmental progress of Studio One using this fantastic analogy, and it was just great. And so that got me thinking about our own personal journeys, either getting to Studio One or kind of our journeys since we started using Studio One. And at the same time, I kind of started thinking about, what are our favorite features, kind of the features that we just go, this is why I love using Studio One. This is it. This is kind of like the best thing that there is in Studio One. So that kind of got me thinking. Let's see. Mike says YouTube just dropped out on me. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm experiencing here with the metrics. I don't know whether the show is actually dropping or not. So I'm hoping it isn't. According to OBS, it isn't. According to OBS, we are grooving at nearly 3,000 kilobits a second. So it could be that there is some kind of YouTube outage taking place. So yeah, so if you guys see the stream go down or freeze or anything like that, please just kind of pop out and pop back in, or hit the refresh button, do whatever you need to do to try and get back in. And if any of you just know that it's completely down and is not running at all. If you're on Facebook, just drop me a message and let me know. And if necessary, we will just abandon tonight's show. We'll see how it goes. But I'm going to keep going regardless. And so I figured maybe tonight what we could talk about is our own personal journeys. Kind of how we got to Studio One, and then kind of, progress with using Studio One, and ultimately kind of our favorite features that make Studio One so great and so enjoyable to use. Kingston Dread is here. He says the show is not dropping. Well, that's good. It looks like it may be just the chat. Could be something like that. Thomas says, I've not had any problems here. Yes, so it could just be that there are some regional outages taking place around the world somewhere. Just intermittent chat. Okay. Yeah, it looks like that's what is the problem. It looks like the chat is not working properly, which is going to make this a little bit difficult to do. But we will try. And I will take comments as I see them appearing in chat. And according to my metrics, it's gone down again. So, yeah, it seems to be kind of holding for a couple of minutes and then going down for a few seconds and then coming back up again. So let's get started. So Alan over in Glasgow is the first one in with this, and he says, I came over from Cubase 5. What sold me is drag and drop. Yeah, well, you know what? I came over from Cubase as well. I came over from Cubase 6. Yeah, 6.5 is when I came over. And definitely drag and drop was a huge winner for me. I remember seeing it in action on one of, I think it was one of Jonny Gibe's videos, which is kind of where I first kind of discovered Studio One, to be honest. Was a combination of Joe Gilder and Jonny Gibe. And I watched their videos and I just saw them just like dragging, dropping plugins into the mixer view. And I was just like, that is just so simple. Why isn't any other DAW using this? Why has nobody else thought of this? And there it is. It was just like, it was a combination for me of drag and drop and how quickly and how easily it is to create a bus channel and route everything. It's just like, it's done. You just select your channels, you right click and choose add a bus for selected channels. And there it is, done. There's nothing else to do. The bus channel is created. Every other DAW, pretty much every other DAW, you have to do other things. You have to create the channel, then you have to route all of your desired channels into it. And, that's like, okay, I create my channel. 10 minutes later, I have routed all of my channels to that bus. Now I can carry on. Studio One is not like that in the slightest. Studio One is just like click, click, done. Move on. And I loved that. And that was for me, as soon as I saw those two things, I was just like, that is it. I am getting this DAW. And I told my wife, and she was just like, you're crazy. That's a lot of money. And at the time, for us, it was a lot of money. And so I actually sold one of my snare drums and a spare couple of bass pickups. And the combination of selling those two on eBay gave me enough money to get Studio One. And as soon as I got Studio One and I installed it and everything else and activated it on my computer, the first other thing I did was I joined the Persona Studio One group on Facebook. And the first person I met on that group was Rick Nakvi, the now global vice president of sales, who is like one of the first Presonus employees, by the way, guys. He's been with the company for 25 years. And he was the first person I met and introduced himself. And he and I have been really great friends ever since. And he is partly responsible for why I'm wearing this and why I work for Presonus. He kind of started that whole little journey. And of course, then I got to meet Jonny Guy on Facebook, and I said, hey, I've been watching your videos, and your videos got me really cracking with Studio One, and then it was not too long after that. Well, he and I became good friends almost immediately. And it was not too terribly long after that we then started the Home Studio Trainer support group on Facebook. And I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, Jonny and I started doing Songwriting Simplified on Wednesdays, which is just, it's great fun doing those with Jonny. If you are available at this kind of time on a Wednesday and songwriting's maybe one of the things that you're into, do come and check out our show over on the Home Studio Trainer YouTube channel. It's great fun. So that's kind of my little journey really with Studio One. I've been involved with it for since I think it was Studio One 2.6.5 or 2.6.3, I think is what it was when I came in and got Studio One. And my journey has kind of grown and developed from there, and I love it, and I wouldn't want to be using any other DAW at this point. That said, though, I do have another DAW installed on my computer. I have Ableton Live, and I use that because partly to test the integration between the Atom SQ and the Atom and Ableton Live as well, because kind of, that's important. That from a work point of view, working in Persona support, that we're able to kind of do all of that. So it looks like the chat's gone down again. So that's kind of where my start happened. All right, I'm going to go and see what your stories are a little bit more. Mike says, drop out, it's me. My kids just came complaining that they lost Wi-Fi. Oh, okay. Cool. Alrighty, let's see. Mike says, ease of use brought me to Studio One. Plus, I bought an AudioBox USB that I still use to this day, 7 years later. You know what? When they sent me the Studio 1824 to test, I gave my AudioBox to my dad. And the cool thing about that AudioBox is that before I got it, it belonged to Jonny Guy. Jonny had a spare one, so he sent that to me. So that, I think it was one of the original beta devices, maybe. And so that little audio interface has some history. And the cool thing is, like 11 years later, nearly, it still works. And my dad loves it. He writes his songs with it. He's a guitar player, singer-songwriter. So he has a lot of fun with that. So yeah. Let's see, what else do we have here? Mike Johnson says, I started out with a tracker program, not a DAW, Fast Tracker 2, then moved to Cakewalk, and I also use Rebirth. I've never heard of Rebirth. And later Reason, now that I have heard of, with Cakewalk. After Reason, I moved to Studio One almost 2 years ago. Awesome! That is a great story. Sean Adams says, I started on a Mac laptop with GarageBand maybe 16 years ago. I would record my cheap amp and guitar with the laptop's mic, then the computer fan would turn on. Yeah, I remember those days too. Dwayne says, drag and drop got me too. Yeah, it's a... You see, I can see the chat refreshing itself now. That's weird. Bobby Booth is here. He says, hello, sorry I'm late. Was working on a mix for Dave Vignola's monthly contest. Awesome, and I'm sure you'll win it. Because your last few mixes that I have heard have been outstanding. Your chops are really good. Kingston Dread says, don't forget Keith Baker. Yes, Keith Baker, who runs the Persona Studio One group now, but at the time he didn't. At the time that I first joined it, it was run by a guy called Niels de Groot. And he was kind of absentee landlord, I suppose, to a degree. He wasn't around that much, but he just kind of let the group tick along. And then kind of a few of us went to him and say, hey, look, I think you need some moderators, mate, to kind of look after this place, because there are people starting to post spam and that kind of stuff. So he picked a few people to be moderators. And, well, at the time, you couldn't be a moderator. You could only be an administrator. You could only be an admin. And so he picked Lee Hazelwood. What's his last name? Hazelwood. Lee Hazelwood and Keith Baker and Skip Jones, the late, great Skip Jones, who was a very good friend of mine. Sadly died last year. And Jonny Guy was in the original group of administrators for that group. So Keith was not originally one of the moderators. He did not start that group. Neil started that group way back in 2009, I think it was. And it was maybe one of the first Facebook groups that was Presonus, and the first Facebook group that was Studio One orientated. And so Neil's created that group and started it, and then Keith Baker, Lee Hazelwood kind of picked up leading the kind of administration side of things, making sure that everything was looked after. And then he went off to go and run his own business. He set up an auto detailing business and didn't have really time for it anymore, so he handed it over to Keith, and Keith now runs it now. So, well, I guess, kind of as that group grows, we'll see kind of where it goes over time, I guess. Bobby Booth with the $5 donation. Thank you so much, mate. You are super generous. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Ken says, bought Studio One 3.5 and Reason 10 at the same time. Never caught onto Reason, but Studio One clicked with me. Followed Joe Gilder for a while and heard Jonny Lipsham's name quite a bit. Found guy once asked Joe stopped. Oh, cool. Yeah. Joe and I go back quite a long way. Oh, not quite as long a way as Jonny Guy. Jonny, I kind of met on Facebook and then talked to very quickly after that. Joe and I kind of didn't click quite so quickly. But he and I are very good friends. Me and Joe Gilder, we're very good friends. We work together now at Presonus, which is amazing. He's a great asset to the company, and he's a lot of fun. He's a good friend of mine. We talk quite a lot nowadays. But yeah, and I have heard this as well, not just from you, Ken, but from others, that he would often talk about me, which is very kind of him. Alan says, having the GUI showing instead of just a list was a biggie too. I love the colors. Macros are great. I've tried all DAWs and least favorite is Pro Tools. Yeah, I've used Pro Tools. When I was coming up as an assistant engineer in a studio in London, and kind of teaching as well as a music educator. I'm a qualified music teacher. And lecturer, just in case you weren't aware of that. And so kind of most colleges, they will either have Logic or they'll have Pro Tools. And that's pretty much it. Sometimes they might have Cubase as well. Now, I spent nearly 30 years on Cubase. But, most of them it's Pro Tools or Logic. So you kind of have to learn those pretty well. So I'm pretty familiar with Pro Tools, and it's the world's biggest pain in the butt. I'll tell you that. Let's see. John Lake says, testing 1, 2, 3. This mic is working. Yeah, we're definitely having some chat problems tonight. Let's see. What else do we have here? Sean Aaron says, I'm still rocking my original S2 interface. The 44 VSL, yes. You are not the only person I know that is running one of those old VSL interfaces that they are long discontinued. We don't even support them anymore. But those audio boxes are incredibly well built. They're really great interfaces. Haven't won yet, but thanks. Yeah, I know, Bobby. I know, but I have high, I have high hopes and confidence in you. Yeah, I can understand that. Just Bob says, I found Johnny Guy's videos, found you from his videos. I was thinking to go door, and you guys sold me on it. I had continual crashes with Cakewalk, both Studio One 3, and never looked back. Loved the workflow. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Studio One 3, I remember when, I don't know how well you guys remember. I mean, that's 5 years ago now, but how well you remember the original launch for that? And it was one of the best product launches I think I have seen for quite a while. It was really, really good. And I remember it being quite the shock because secrecy had been so good about Studio One 3 that there were pretty much nothing leaked out at all, and suddenly we went from this grey blue kind of GUI to suddenly dark, but yet having lots of colors as well, being able to colorize everything. It was quite the shock. I remember. And now here we are with Studio One 5. John Lake says, I could never get Cakewalk to work. Yeah. I think I looked at Cakewalk maybe a couple of times because a friend of mine in his studio, he has Cakewalk. And I was just like, it's just clutter. It's nearly as bad as Reaper for clutter. Mika says, hello all, hope everything is well. Hey Mika, we are doing well. We're talking about how we got to being involved with Studio One. That's the subject for tonight, really, and also our favorite features, which I guess we'll come on to in just a few minutes. John Lake is clearly struggling with the chat, I think. Yeah, we are definitely having problems with the chat tonight. Sean says, when I started with Studio One, 2, I think that is, I had a hard time with that. I could record tracks barely. The MP3 CDs were horrific sounding because I didn't know how to use the plugins. Yeah, we've all been there. I most certainly have. My early records that I made, I mean, actually, I'm old enough to predate DAWs, but my first recordings that I made were horrific, and they were done on tape back in those days. But yeah, they were just as horrific. I totally remember that place. It's not a nice place, but you gradually, as you get better at it and better at it, you kind of get there. Stupendous is here, and he says, both Cubase and Pro Tools made me want to hang myself. You know what? I understand the sentiment totally, having used Cubase for as long as I did. And here's the thing. I was a Cubase evangelist. I would preach the gospel of Steinberg and Cubase and how great it was. And all the while, I was kind of struggling with it, with stability problems, with it being pretty clunky, and integration with certain interfaces was rubbish. And with certain other interfaces, it was fine. But, it's just like you couldn't go out and buy an interface and know that your DAW was going to work with, you couldn't buy an interface and know that it was going to work with Cubase. So you could easily spend like a few £100, a few £100, a few $100 on just buying interfaces in kind of hope that it's going to work. And you just didn't know. And so that for me was the one of the biggest frustrations of Cubase. And so eventually I had a lot of back and forth with Steinberg and talking with them. And I was just like, look, come on, I've been a very, very long time Cubase user. I've been in since version 1, guys. Come on. At least hear me out. Hear what I have to say. And they weren't that interested. So I was just like, well, fine. I'm not going to preach the gospel of Steinberg and Cubase anymore. So I didn't. I stopped. And I went looking for another DAW, and I at first looked at Pro Tools, and then I looked at the price tag for Pro Tools and stopped looking at Pro Tools. And of course I couldn't look at Logic because I had a PC, don't have a Mac. I now have a Mac, but That doesn't actually belong to me. That belongs to Presonus. That's my work Mac. But yeah, it was just, so being on PC kind of limited me really to some degree. And then of course, as I say, I discovered Jonny Guy and Joe Gilder, and they were using Studio One, and that was it. I sold a snare drum and a couple of pickups and bought Studio One, and the rest is history. And now I work for the company, which is mental. Alan says the most unstable DAW I've ever used is Samplitude. Never used it. Wouldn't know a thing about it, unfortunately. Bob says I was using a Tascam Neo 2488 before I went with Studio One as a digital port. Oh, I remember those. Yeah. A band that I played with for a while. As kind of like a temporary drummer for them because they, their drummer got fired and so I kind of worked with them for a bit. They entered a Battle of the Bands contest and they won it, and the prize that they won was that particular Porter Studio, and they used that to make a record. It was not a bad record actually. But yeah, they are interesting devices to say the least. Mike says I essentially stopped using third-party plugins because Studio One has everything you need to mix a song for my needs anyways. That's a great point, and brings me on to another little story. I had like the Waves, a couple of Waves bundles, so I had about 70 or 80 Waves plugins back in my Cubase days. Sort of the latter end of my Cubase days, maybe the last sort of 5 or 6 years of my Cubase days, I had all of these Waves plugins and stuff. And then somebody challenged me and said, hey, I bet you can't mix a song with just the stock Cubase plugins. And I said, all right, you're on. So I did. I mixed a song just using the native Cubase plugins. And he said, okay, I bet you can't mix for a whole year just using the stock plugins. I've done it for one song and it was all right. Well, it turned out pretty well. Okay, I'll take your bet. And so I did. And here's the thing. When I got to the end of that year, I just never bothered reinstalling my Waves bundles. And I kept going. And I kept going. 15 years. I only used native plugins, including after I had switched to Studio One. I still only used the Presonus plugins. And I didn't get any third-party plugins until 4 years ago? Yeah, 4 years ago. That was when I broke that really long third-party plugins fast. And I am living proof of it. You can absolutely mix lots and lots of records and have happy clients just using what comes with your DAW without having to spend any money at all on anything third party. It absolutely can be done and can be done really well. It's, it's how good you are with the tools that are there. In my opinion. Kingston Dread says, I came from Pro Tools to Logic and then to Studio One 3 and now 5. I still own Pro Tools up to date because of clients who bring sessions, but I prefer Logic to Pro Tools and Studio One to all of them. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, these days, it kind of, I think the trend nowadays is to be multi-DAW. I go to a lot of studios, or at least I did before COVID, because I do a lot of session work. I try and do most of my session work remotely, but sometimes you can't do that. Like, for example, when you're doing a film score or something, you have to be in the studio. And so a lot of studios that I go to, they have maybe 3, maybe 4 DAWs. They'll have Pro Tools, they'll have Cubase, they'll have Nuendo, they'll have Reason, or they'll have Logic, or they'll have something else. So they've got several different DAWs. But the bigger studios, the one that they use is Pro Tools. Pro Tools for whatever reason, still appears to be the industry standard. Let's see. Bobby says, I started with version 2, the free one, and got artists when they had a sale for $5. And now I'm on Pro with the help of Andy Arthur. Andy Arthur's a great guy who, unfortunately, I don't really talk to very much these days. Certainly not as much as I used to. He's a really, really good guy, and he actually really knows his stuff. If you want to talk to somebody that knows their stuff, talk to Andy Arthur. He really does know his stuff, especially for live sound. Live sound, he's your man. He is incredibly knowledgeable, and I believe he's still an authorized PreSonus dealer for live sound gear, like the CDL speakers and those kind of things. Alan says, the worst thing about Cubase was the dongles. Don't get me started on those dongles. Oh my gosh. The E-licenser. I hate those. I hated them in the 80s when they were that big. And now they're kind of that big. But it's just like, what? They are such a bad idea. And I think for the same reason I'm not a fan of the iLok. I'm not a fan of iLok for much the same reason as I'm not a fan of the E-licenser. There are definitely better ways that you can look after copy protection. Definitely. I mean, heck, there's no dongle for Studio One. You know? I think there is something to be said for trusting your customer base and instilling a culture of trust. You know, it's not just something where you just go, hey, you know, we'll kind of innocently trust, you know, naively trust the customers. No, I think you have to create that culture when you start. You know, it has to be something that is birthed into the culture of the company first. That you have that relationship with your customers, and your customers feel privileged to have that layer of trust with the company. I think if everybody did that, you wouldn't need dongles. You wouldn't need iLoks. There would just be a complete non-thing. Sean says, I gave up for a while because I couldn't figure out Studio One version 2. By the time Studio One 3 came out, I got back into recording. Then I smashed my finger and couldn't play guitar. Then I found Home Studio Trainer and got back into Studio One version 2. So you're back on Studio One version 2, Sean Aaron. Are you still on version 2? The reason why I ask is you are definitely not unique. I know a number of people who are still, they're still back on the old grey and blue version of Studio One. And for them, it's fine and does exactly what they want. They are happy with it. And for those people, I say, you know what? If you're making great music, who cares? I don't. Sure, I think there are some reasons and there are some necessities where, yeah, you will have to upgrade to a higher version of Studio One, particularly if you want certain new things, certain new features, certain new improvements, for sure. But you know what? If you are making great music and you are happy with the music you are making, I don't think it's that big a thing, to be honest. And, maybe my boss will shoot me. I don't know for saying such a thing. But, I think if you're happy on version 2, stay with version 2. The only thing about that that's different is that, since we launched version 4 in 2018, Studio One 2 is no longer supported. So, if you contact us with an issue with Studio One version 2, we can help you because it's not a supported product anymore. But Studio One version 3 is now kind of in that same area as well because we have Studio One 5 now. So Studio One 3 is officially not really supported, but, we're nice people over in support. If we can, if we can help you real quick and get your ticket wrapped up quickly in a couple of shots, then we'll help. But for the most part, we're not going to go digging in and zeroing in on big troubleshooting issues with Studio One 3 because it's not really supported anymore, and it's not being developed anymore. So there you go. That's that with Studio One 2. Ken says, back when I did radio, I used Cool Edit Pro. Gosh, not seen that for a long time. But only to record spots, 2 tracks max. But I guess that would actually be my first door. Yeah, it may well have been actually Cool Edit Pro. Yeah, for sure. Kingston says, before Doors, I came from 2-inch 16 or 24 track tape at Sugar Hill Records. Awesome. The rep label in New Jersey, all analog. Yeah, that's the tape machines that I used, 2-inch tape. Sean says I'm on 4.6. Okay, cool. But you still have the discs from Studio One 2. Yeah, I have a lot of those Studio One 2 discs kicking about for various reasons, and we use them mostly for putting my tea mug on. Because they pretty much won't work on any operating system that is current. Cool Edit Pro was bought by Adobe and is now called Audition. That's correct. Spot on. And I think we've caught up. So, where we got? We got about 15 minutes left. So why don't we now switch topics a little bit? Why don't we talk about our favorite features? When we kind of intermingled this with kind of talking about what brought us to Studio One. But, now that you are using Studio One and you've been into it for a few years, some of you for as many as 10 years, what is your favorite feature? Kind of the one that surpasses them all. Now, I know there are a lot of features, and you might have more than one, and that's okay. If, I'll say, hey, what are your top 3 features in Studio One that they either blow you away or you use them all the time? And, you're just like, these are the 3 most useful and the 3 best features in Studio One. And we can be talking from, the whole gamut over the last 10 years. Let's see what you guys have to say about that whilst I have more tea. My Fender mug. Thank you, Fender. They sent me a t-shirt as well. Let's see. Alan says, macros. You can't get that in any other DAWs. Correct. They are phenomenally powerful. And I've only really got into using them maybe the last 18 months. And I have to thank my colleague and hilarious German friend Gregor Bayerle for that. He's one of our software specialists, as you'll all be familiar with from the videos he does on the Personas channel and his hilarious live streams on Personasphere. If you're a member of Personasphere, you'll have seen his live streams. They are fantastic. Yeah, he got me into macros. Not only using them, but making them. He is a macro genius. I have a couple of macro genius friends, actually. Lawrence is one of them. I talked about Lawrence earlier. Lawrence, he's really, really cool. If you're not aware of who he is one of the forum administrators over at forums.personas.com. And he is one of my colleagues in technical support, but he also writes little scripts. And he has a website. I need to find the link to that website, but I will put it up in the description below after the show once I've found that link. And you can go find that link to his scripting site for Studio One, and you can actually, he's got a few scripts there that you can just go and grab, and you can put in the scripts folder for Studio One, and there's some additional layers of functionality that are available for you that are unique to his scripts and unique to Lawrence's work. So I will recommend that site to you. to go and check out. Let's see. Macros exist in every DAW. They have different names, but all major DAWs have compounding of edit features. Yeah, that is true. That is true. That is a good point. But I don't think they are necessarily as easy to work with as the ones that we have in Studio One. Diego says, if I had 2 monitors, I'd be able to display the full mixer window in one monitor and the rest in the other. Would I be able to display the full mixer window in one monitor and the rest in the other? Yeah, you can certainly have the mixer view are in one monitor and the arranger view in another. You can undock the mixer view and put it over on your second screen. That's actually really, really easy to do. I can show you how to do that real quick. Just give me one little second. And we'll go over to screen. Like that. So we're over in the Studio One screen, and it's just dead easy to undock this. There is this little button here that says detach. And when it detaches, see, you can see it's now disappeared. It's actually over on my second screen, which you can't see. But yeah, it's over on my second screen, and then I can just pop it back in by reattaching it. When you press this button that says detach, once you've detached it and it's over on the other screen, there is a corresponding button that says attach, and it pops right back in. And yeah, so I can, if I want to, I can have my arranger view, which is what you saw a minute ago on my main screen right here, or on this screen over here, I can have the mixer, and I can swap them around. In fact, with Studio One 5, you can detach pretty much the mixer, any of the editors. So you can have the audio editor and the MIDI editor. You can have those two open and the mixer open at the same time, fully detached. And if you've got like more screens, let's say you've got 4 or 5 screens, you could have the arranger view on this screen, you could have the mixer over here, and then you could have 2 other monitors with the different editors open at the same time. You can do all of that. It's very, very powerful to be able to do that now. So let's go. Hang on. Where's my pointer gone? There it is. Let's go back. There we go. Okay, so yeah, so you can absolutely do that, Diego. Dwayne says, can work with audio and MIDI. Yep. Project page. Yep. Ken says, honestly, for me, it's the routing. It's a no-brainer. Easy to create tracks, buses, effects, channels, etc., and very straightforward to route them. Pro Tools, Reason, etc. is too hard to figure out. Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. I mean, in Pro Tools, you have to do pretty much every piece of routing yourself, which I guess appeals to some people, appeals to some engineers. Maybe it's the whole console thing, because on a console you have to do that. If you want to send audio from one part of the console to another, you have to patch it. And that's just a physical task you have to do to make it work. To be able to process the audio through the console, out to outboard gear and back through and then back to tape. You have to be able to patch all those things together. So that's a physical task that you have to do. And maybe Pro Tools is kind of built around that kind of concept, where if you want to send audio somewhere, you have to send it and then connect up the return and everything else. So for it to work. So when you're creating a bus in or an aux channel, I think they call it in Pro Tools, you have to create the send and you have to create the return for that so that it all works. You have to connect those things up. Whereas in Studio One, it's much more intuitive for people that don't have that console background, and not everybody does, and not everybody is going to have that. And it basically says, hey, we're in a digital domain. What is the point of having to connect everything up? Doesn't really make any sense. So let's have all of the routing done under the hood in the background and just make it super easy and super intuitive for the customer to just be able to go, I need a bus channel for all my 7 guitar channels. Select those, right click, choose add a bus for selected channels, done. Same if you want a reverb send. Dead easy, just grab the reverb plugin and drag it onto send and bob's your ante. It's that easy. In other DAWs, you have to create the reverb send, and then the reverb plugin goes on reverb send, and so on and so forth. You know, it's much clunkier. Let's see. Sean Aaron says, my favorite feature is Ampire. It's the user cabinet. I got 3 IRs of Vox 30. Nice. And then bought the pack. My clarity improved before I did much EQ to the amp. Absolutely. That's awesome. I like that. Mika says, I like Studio One because Presonus is an American company, despite making their hardware in China. Their German software division is freaking amazing. The DAW customer support is number 1. Thank you very much for that, Mika. Yeah, I totally appreciate your sentiment there. And that's nice. Thank you. Appreciate that. See, Diego's asking, how can I copy an automation track and paste the exact edits in another? Good question, and we're kind of out of time for answering that one, so maybe I will answer that next week. And if you can't wait for a week, then maybe post that over on the Facebook page, either the Persona Studio One page or on the Home Studio Trainer Support Group page. You can post it there, and you'll get help pretty darn quick with that one. Let's see. Just Bob says, my favorite feature is cohesive workflow, seamless reverse feature. Yes. Ease of track creation and show high feature to clear up my mixing area when working on many tracks. And busing. Busing is a big one. Mika also says, I like Reaper because a track can be anything, a VST, an audio, a bus, or a VCA, and all those can be combined. Cool. Mika says, does anyone here find that there's a lot of fiddling to get your bus folder track to set up in the arranger in the same way in the mixer? That is one thing that sucks. Actually, I have found it to not be that hard. I'll be honest. And you're gonna think I'm crazy, but I actually think it's pretty straightforward. Let's go over to Studio One, and I've got a brand new song here. But let's say we hit T here, and let's say we've got 5 tracks, and let's say for example these are drums, right? And let's say I want to pack these into a folder, and I want the folder to be a bus as well. Really straightforward. First thing I do is I pack the track, so I shift and then click to select all of these, right click and then go pack folder, job done, then go down, then see where it says none in the assignment. Now I just go add bus channel. Done. Then of course I can make sure that is named drums. And then when you open the mixer, there it is. Just like that. Okay, it wasn't 2 clicks. It was maybe 3 tops. Okay, but it didn't take me very long to sort that out. And you can repeat that. And you can nest folders inside other folders. You can do that. You know, so I could have a bunch of folders. I could have a drums folder, which is a bus. I could have a bass. I could have a guitar folder. I could have hammered organ. I could have piano. I could have whatever I need. And then I could have all of those folders nested into another folder, which is my band folder. So all of those folders, bump, 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 they're all into another folder called band. You can do that. That is as easy as you like. Convert a folder into a bus on a full arrangement with lots of tracks. Your folder bus moves up in the mixer. Move it back, your arranger's messed up. Yeah, I'll test that, Mika. But certainly doing that when you've, you know, when you're setting things up is probably the quickest way to do things. Where your folder bus moves up in the mixer, move it back, and your range is messed up. Well, I suppose it depends on how you have the settings with bus channels. You have this set here, keep bus channels to the right. Or link expansion of visibility of folder tracks, for example. Auto expand selected channel. That kind of stuff. Make sure you've got these set up correctly, and maybe that'll help you out a bit. So there we go. I hope that helps, and I hope that has cleared up some at least a couple of questions there. We have 2 minutes left of the show before we are out of time. And so maybe I'll take one more short question from somebody. Or maybe somebody else wants to pitch in and say what features they have found to be the best and the most useful for them. We got 23 people here, which is amazing. And I think we peaked somewhere around about 26, which is actually pretty good by our standards. It'd be nice if we could get towards 40 or 50. I would love to get to 50 at some point. So, that'd be nice. Let's see. We're getting any other comments? Maybe the chat has died again. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it has. We've only got a couple of minutes left. And I think my personal favorites, if you want my top 3, would be routing, busing, how quick and easy they are. And my final one is going to be drag and drop, because drag and drop is just a stroke of genius. Whoever came up with that as kind of like the foundational workflow for a DAW is a genius. So there you go. And suddenly we've got a little flurry here. If you plan everything ahead, then it all behaves as planned. But if you start adding, subtracting, moving tracks around, good luck. I tend to have everything planned well ahead. Particularly if I know what the instrumentation is going to be. So if I know I'm dealing with a particular band and I know what instrumentation they have, how many guitars do they have? They have 3 guitars. Great. Their keyboard player is going to be playing is going to do maybe 3 different keyboard tracks, maybe a piano, a Fender Rhodes, and a Hammond organ. And maybe we've got a 5-piece horn section. Maybe we've also got, a 5-piece backing vocal group. And maybe we've got, for a couple of songs, we've maybe got some strings as well. When I know that that's what I'm dealing with for either a single song or a bunch of songs for a record, then I will create a template where all of that is just there. So that, when I'm loading up, then and we're getting ready to track the next song, I just create a new song and I use that template. Folders are all there, buses are all there, reverb sends, delay sends, they are all there. And there's no mucking about. Now, if I need to augment, then I need to augment. But for the most part, if I know what's coming, then it's all about the preparation for me. That's just me. I mean, Mika, it might be very different for you. You might have a completely different way of working. And maybe that's where you're coming a little unstuck. I don't know. But for me, certainly, if I know what's coming, then, or what record I'm assigned to mix, then, it's easy. I just create a template. And I have all of that set up. And I do that on the day before I actually start mixing. I'll set up all the routing. I'll set up all the bus channels. I'll set up all the folders or what have you, or whatever I need, or any of the effects channels. I have all of those set ready to go. And then it's just like, create new song, use XYZ template, whatever it's going to be called, and all of that populates. And then I'm ready to go. Then I just bring in the stems. Job done. It's all organized. So there. There you go. And Mike says, I'll be 50 next June. Awesome, dude. Well, you know what? We've got to make sure we have a party. Bob says, I just turned 50 last Wednesday. Yes, you did. You did. And I seem to recall I promised you a little something. So I will get that to you, Bob. I promise. Don't forget ARA. Absolutely. That partnership between Celemony and Presonus to create Melodyne via ARA is a stroke of genius. And here's the thing. That has now been distributed to other DAWs. So there are other DAWs that now have ARA capability. So that's pretty cool as well. Sean Aaron says, Can I cover your song Paper Deity? I'd like to attempt my version. I'll need some help from my guitar structure on your chord progressions. Sean, drop me an email, please, and we'll talk. Okay? We can do that. Please return control of my computer. I'm out of here. Bye, says John Lake. Thanks, buddy. David Anthony says, I'm amazed so few people join this live stream. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say so. I would love it if we had a lot more people here more regularly. So if you know people who you think would benefit from a show like this, which is quite different to other people's live streams, then please, by all means, do send them the link. Get them involved. Bring them in. Invite them. I would love for there to be more new people here. We have a few new people here already, which is great. People that have been added to this in the last 18 months, which is awesome. And I'm so glad that you guys are here. And I know that we've got people like Bobby Booth who have been involved in every single live stream I have ever done since I started nearly 3 years ago. So I would love it if we had 30, 40, 50 regular attenders to this show. And I think maybe as we grow it, maybe it can become a lot more kind of subject and topic focused. I know I've asked you guys to do this before, but I'm going to ask you guys again. Please, if you have a particular focus that you would like a show to be orientated around, a particular subject, a particular topic, please do email me, johnny@johnnylipshamstudios.co.uk. The website is down below. You can see that down there. Just put johnny@johnnylipshamstudios.co.uk. Do that and put in the subject, Sunday Night Live subject, and then just tell me what you'd like us to talk about or what you'd like to see demonstrated in Studio One, and we'll do it, because really I want to make this show about you guys and not about me. Because Sunday Night Live really should be about you folks and not me at all. I'm just here to help. I'm here to teach. I'm here to learn from you guys and for you to learn from me. So that's kind of what this is all about. David Anthony says, I turned 73 about a week ago. Congratulations, mate. Happy birthday to you. Yes, I'll send you maybe a Skype call if that's cool. Yeah, just drop me an email, Sean, and then I'll look at my schedule and we'll figure out when we can do a Skype call. Okay? That would be cool. Mika says, Jonny Lipsham's a real gem. Thank you, Mika. You're very kind. Thanks a lot, buddy. And with that, on that particular note, I need to mention this person. BBudman672 says, first time and I'll be back. Well, that's great. Thank you for being here. I'm glad you enjoyed the show sufficiently that you're going to come back next Sunday. I look forward to you being here. Please do say something in the chat next week as well. If you want to contribute, this is totally your place to ask questions about Studio One and about, music production and mixing and songwriting and that kind of stuff. Please do have something to say. Feel free to contribute like the rest of the folks here have done. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Kerry says, hi everyone, just turned 67 a few weeks ago. Awesome, you guys are fantastic. I like the fact that you can cut up tracks and adjust volumes. Yeah, you can, absolutely. All right, folks, we're going to end it there because we are 6 minutes over time. But thank you very much, everybody, for being here. You guys are the best. You're the best folks in YouTube land. Absolutely. I'm very grateful for every one of you, and I'm very grateful for your kind words, your comments, and your very generous donations as well from last week as well as this week. I appreciate it a lot. Please do hit the like button if you're not subscribed to the channel. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and select all notifications. That way, whether I'm making a video or doing another show like this, you'll get the notification about it. And that way you won't miss out. So there we go. It was a great show. Thank you guys for your comments and for your stories about your journey through with Studio One. They are awesome and very, very encouraging. And I will see you all on Wednesday over on the Home Studio Trainer channel for Songwriting Simplified with me and Jonny. And I'll see you then. Good night.